Hartman, editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, which is part of SB Nation, which is a part of Vox Media. Here is for another episode of the Steelers preview. And joining me, as always, is Bryan Anthony Davis and Dave Schofield. That's a little inside joke there that we were talking about before we came in here. Bryan, how's it going this evening?
Welcome to my podcast. It's good to see all of you. Now, we had a game already. The Steeler preview means something. I'm feeling fantastic.
How's it going, Dave? What do you think?
I think you get to do this podcast with two fantastic geniuses. I mean, I called the 30 points, the 19 first downs, the one turnover. If they'd count turnover margin, if they count 2-point conversions, that would have been right. Bryan called the number of sacks, and very impressively, he was very close. I did not spill a condiment on my jersey, but I did drip grease on my Dilly Dilly shirt. But luckily it came out, so I can wear it tonight.
It's all fun and games until you drip on the Dilly Dilly.
So here's the thing. So obviously, week one of the preseason is wrapped up. And like Bryan said, we're actually talking about football games, and week one's kind of a tease. For people like us that follow the 91-man preseason roster, you can kind of get something out of all four quarters, because even in the fourth quarter, you're watching these rookies, you're watching these prospects who you talked about. But for a lot of people, after the first half, they're done. Week two is going to be a little different, and we're going to talk about week two, but I want to go back, not too far back. Get your thoughts on the week that was. I want to hear about a player that might have surprised you. So let's do this. Let's do a one surprise and one disappointment from week one's preseason game. We'll bounce around, see what you think, and then one news noteworthy item that happened this week, and then we'll get into Stat Geek and move on from there. Sound good?
I like it.
All right, let's go Bryan first.
Great.
So one surprise and one disappointment from week one.
Well, I'm going to go with a linebacker, and I'm sure there's guys that you're thinking of at linebacker. He does a great job with the linebacking, but I want to go with Tuzar Skipper. Here's a guy that was also a mini camp pickup, a rookie mini camp signing, and he came out of the University of Toledo, a teammate of Ola Adeniyi. And so now he looks, first of all, you take his helmet off, he looks like one mean dude. And then he plays like one mean dude. And it's so great to watch this guy. He's got a motor. Suddenly, they have depth at outside linebacker as well. So I'm pretty excited about this guy. My thoughts on the game real fast. Usually the first preseason game, Jeff, Dave, whether they win or lose, it's you're like, eh. This is the first preseason opener that I've watched in a long time where I'm like, yeah. There's depth in a lot of places. I love the way they looked. If I'm looking at a disappointment, there's not too many. I got to go with Chuks Okorafor. He was supposed to make that big jump up from season 1 to season 2. And right now, he looks like he's fighting for a roster spot. Now, that might be a dramatic after game 1, but he just looks like he doesn't look like a guy trying to steal the position, take the position. He looks like a guy trying to hold on.
Good points. All good points there. Dave, what about you? One surprise, one disappointment, and your thoughts on week one.
I was going to say, I've got a couple of each, so I was going to let you go first if you want to, so sure. I don't take any of yours.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then I'll go with whoever's left.
Okay, my one surprise, disappointments, for some reason, maybe when it comes to evaluating players with my winners and losers column, I always struggle with losers, and I think of a couple. But for my winner, I'm actually going to go with Chris Boswell, because Chris Boswell he was awful last year. That's the only way you could put it. He was dreadful. And this was his first time kicking in a game atmosphere with a little bit of pressure, because you know what? Check that. That's a lot of pressure. He realizes his job is on the line. And I don't care if it's a meaningless preseason game. He knows if he misses kicks, he's done. He's gone. And who's going to pick him up? He's going to have to wait for a team to have an injury at the kicker position to get another chance. So that is pressure. So I was proud of Chris Boswell's performance. Thought he did well, kickoffs and obviously on field goals and point after. So I'll give him my surprise. My disappointment, this would be a toss-up between Justin Lane and Benny Snell Jr. for me. I bashed on Benny Snell Jr. pretty bad in my winners and losers column. So I'm going to go with Justin Lane because I thought Justin Lane. I guess mentally, I thought to myself, okay, this guy he's the pedigree, he has the size, it's everything that you're looking for in a draft prospect, and he looks like just the next in a really long line of bum middle round cornerbacks. Now, like Bryan said, it's only one game, but he played a lot of snaps and he didn't look very good. So I'm going to say that my disappointment was Justin Lane. Now, with that said, wrapping up week one here on this show, I will say that I would take every single thing you hear from us, from any other show on our platform, and from any other show anywhere with a gigantic grain of salt because it is just week one of the preseason. And Justin Lane, as poorly as he played, can still rebound and play better in week two and continue to improve and turn into a really good, solid cornerback. So although he's a disappointment for me right now, and I know I'm not alone, he still can turn things around. So that's my thoughts on week one. All right, Dave, go ahead. What do you got for us?
Well, you summed it up very well. We've really got to take this with a grain of salt because it is just week one. Guys can look great, and you can remember it. If guys don't look great, they are going to have a chance to show that they can do better. Because one person I considered talking about that did not play well, that I thought or kind of got lost in the crowd, was Marcus Allen. If you remember last year, he didn't even really play and didn't look like he was going to even push to make the team until week three and the preseason, and that's when he made his big push. So even if they're not playing or not doing well, it can turn around. But I'm not going to use him. I'm going to say I'll take the obvious one for who stood out to me, and I will take, in the words of Coach Tomlin, Ulysses Grant. If you caught that on his press conference, that was funny. They had a big laugh about that. They asked him if that was a nickname or a slip, and he said it was a slip. I'm like, yeah, that's going to be a nickname now too.
We did that joke on draft night.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Yes, we did.
True.
So no, but Gilbert, he just seemed to have the speed and the flow and just seemed to be in the right spots. And I mean, he had the interception on the 2-point conversion. He had a sack and a half. He had a forced fumble in there. I think he had a pass defense or two. Now granted, Coach Tomlin did say he was doing that later on in the game, not against the same competition. So I'd like to see what he does this week because I think they'll get him out there sooner. My disappointment, I'm going to say, because you guys might have to help me with this. I know I saw him on the field because I was at the game. I know I saw him on the field for special teams. I don't know if he got any offensive snaps, but he was dressed. Where was Xavier Grimble? Did they put him on the field in offense?
I think they did, but not often. He didn't play very much. So,
and that was the thing. I mean, I know he was dressed. I saw him out there. I saw him go off the field on a special team play, but I never really saw him do anything. So it was disappointing because I really would like to see him step up and grab a hold of that number 2 tight end role.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. Go ahead, Bryan. You have something to say?
You know what? You just inspired me, Dave. I also didn't hear the greatest draft pick in Steeler history. I didn't hear Sutton Smith's name at all. Was he dressed? Because I thought he was supposed to be the guy.
He was hurt.
Okay.
He was hurt. Deontay Johnson was hurt. That was a couple young guys that we didn't see on the field. And Coach Tomlin has talked about this week with both guys in press conferences where Jeff talked about it last night on his Steelers one-on-one about how they asked him if Sutton Smith's being left behind because of his availability. If he's got some, and his answer was yes. That was his answer. So those guys know they've got to get out on the field in order to make this team.
Well, it looks like Sutton Smith is probably going to miss another week. He hasn't practiced at all this week from what I've gathered, but Deontay Johnson, it looks like he will play. And we're going to talk about that. So, but let's go back to this week that was. I don't want to brush over and gloss over the death of Daryl Drake, but we've talked about this on every show. And it's sad. It's horrible. Ed Bouchette wrote the article about what exactly happened, about how, he had checked himself into the hospital in Latrobe. They asked him to stay overnight. He said no. And we all know what transpired after that. Other than the Drake news, what are your guys' take? Is anything noteworthy? Did anything jump off the page at you from the week that was? Dave, we'll start with you.
Well, it was a very disruptive week. not just because of everything with Coach Drake and them canceling Sunday's practice, moving Mondays to Tuesday. Then Tuesdays was shortened by rain. Today's was shortened by rain. So I'm not. I kind of have lowered expectations for this week because of everything and their lack of work because of stuff. So it's just kind of been a strange week. And they're leaving camp. They have the closed practice tomorrow. Is the practice in Latrobe that's closed, or are they going back to Pittsburgh for that? You guys
I
know?
think they might actually be in Pittsburgh tomorrow, but I could be wrong. They could have a closed
Yeah.
practice in Latrobe and then head back. But the game on Saturday, I wouldn't be shocked if they're back in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. So it's just the transition out of camp. It's just been kind of a very strange, different week. So hopefully after this game, they can then get back into more of like a game routine, not in camp. These are our practices. This is how it goes. So it's just been kind of an off week.
Okay, what about you, Brian? Anything jump out at you from the week that was?
Dave is completely right. Here's the thing. They just want to get to this game on Saturday night. Because that's when the healing is going to begin for them even more. This was a healing week. It was they did not really get a chance to focus on football that we saw. There was not a lot of news that came out of anything. The big news, and something that you mentioned on the post game, on your post-game show with Lance on Friday night, was they got out relatively unscathed as far as injury goes. So that's a big deal. That's going to help them out going out a whole lot further going into Saturday night. And the thing is, we're going to see the pages turn as far as writing this season, and you're going to see a whole lot more. You're going to see some continuation. You're going to see a few more guys mixed in. So that's what they really just need to get to Saturday night to erase the last 7 days.
Yeah, it's been a rough week. It's been an odd week. Like you said, it's been a rough week. So, all right, we turn the page on this week. We're moving on to week 2. Before we do that, let's get to a Stat Geek segment. Dave, go ahead.
Okay, the first part isn't exactly a stat. It is kind of a number, but I've got to ask this in order to set it up. Maybe we'll get some help in the live chat, see if they know. What has been the Tomlin phrase in all of his press conferences and everything this season? Does anybody know?
This season.
What's been the big thing that he said?
I'm trying to think. He says a lot of stuff.
Last year, it was, if it's carried over, we're not going to paint with a broad brush.
I haven't heard that yet this year. I'm so bummed.
But so, and I listen to his press conferences, but nothing's jumping out at me.
Well, so he always did. I love the if you have red paint, you paint the barn red. There's that. There's obviously his arrow is pointing up. There is the standard is the standard. I haven't heard anything either. What is it there, Dave?
Okay, here this one. Once I say it, you're going to hear it all the time. Everything that he's talking about, we're getting some decent ones in the live chat, but it's still not the right one. The right one. Leave the light on. Okay, not too big for him. That's a good one. You ready? It is. Well, someone mentioned the moving train. That's good, but it's still not it. It's the words in stadium.
Okay.
He's been talking about everything being in stadium, in a stadium, into the stadium, things like that. All those phrases. I counted how many times he used that in today's press conference. How many times do you think he said the phrase in stadium or in the stadium or whatever today?
5. I would say 5.
Jeff says 5.
I'll go higher. Let's give 7.
How about 13?
Oh my God.
13 times. And I even read over the transcript and verified that number after I counted them listening to it. And what's funny, he's used it so much. One of the questions, the reporter even used the phrase in stadium in a question. I didn't count that one as one of the 13. So you've actually heard it 14 times, but 13 times by Coach Tomlin. But I thought that was pretty funny.
I've said this before, Dave. First of all, great dedication by reading the transcript of that just to get that number. That's awesome. But I've said this before on this show. If I ever get in trouble with my wife, I'm going to like pay whatever I can to have Mike Tomlin get me out of it, because he could go. I'd love for him to explain it and talk it and do the conference with my wife, because I really think that after listening to that for about 10 minutes, I'll be completely out of trouble.
I tell you, he can say an awful lot without not saying much at all.
Exactly.
It's great. It's an art form, and I love it. I mean, you might not like Coach Tomlin for his other issues. I do like Coach Tomlin, but I do love his press conferences just because I like the challenge of seeing him say nothing, say so much without saying anything. It's great. Quick question, real simple. Ben Roethlisberger, what number pick was he in the draft?
He was the number
What
pick?
was he picked overall? Bryan,
11th overall.
he was the 11th overall. He is not the highest, obviously, Coach Tomlin. He is not the highest drafted player on the Steelers right now. Can you name all the Steelers that were drafted as a higher pick than Ben Roethlisberger? I'm not even going to tell you how many there are. I just want to see if you can.
Let's do this, Bryan. Let's
go back and forth.
Devin Bush, obviously, was 10th.
Just got Devin
overall.
Bush. Bryan.
So that's one.
Okay.
Joe Hayden.
Joe Hayden is 2.
So we're counting players that weren't necessarily drafted by Pittsburgh.
No, not drafted by Pittsburgh. Drafted overall.
Wasn't Tyson Alualu drafted ahead of higher than 11th?
Tyson Alualu was drafted 10th.
Okay.
10th.
And
I can't do it, but it's not working.
Yeah. And I'll give you a hint. There's only one more.
Huh.
So Bryan's got
he
the
was
last
not
one.
drafted by the He wasn't drafted by the
Steelers. Devin Bush was the only one drafted by the Steelers. I can give you another hint. So this is current Steelers, because I got some people coming in the live chat guessing other people. Here's your hint.
Yeah, I don't want
to. We got it in the live chat. Elijah Fisher.
Oh, here it is.
Yep.
Mark Barron.
Mark Barron. Yeah, he was number 9.
Barron. He was the number 7 pick. Let's see. Bush was 10th in 2019. Alualu was 10th in 2010, while Hayden was 7th in 2010. So the Steelers have 3 first-round draft picks from 2010 in Alualu, Hayden, and Marquise Pouncey. And Barron was 7th overall in 2012. So, and they would have had, and last season, it would have, well, obviously there wouldn't have been Devin Bush, but they lost one from last season because they had Darius Hayward-Bay. So they do a good job of taking the cast-offs that were top 10 picks that didn't work out for people.
You know what's really funny about that DHB pick? So he was the number 1 pick of the Raiders in 2009. They also had the number 2 pick of 2009, Mike Mitchell, on their team at the same time. So, but that's not a good thing to have 2 Raiders picks, but I digress.
Yes. So there you go, Jeff. Just a little quick fun thing to do.
That was a good one. Very good stat key. Now, I do want to mention Anthony Johnson. This was a while back in the show. He actually gave us $5 in the super chat. Let me explain what that is in case you don't know. Wherever you're commenting, whatever device you're using, where you comment to the right should be a small little money sign. If you want to donate some money to the program, you can hit that symbol, donate any amount of money. It goes straight to the show. We appreciate it. You don't have to use it, but you can. And if you do, it'll highlight that question and we'll be guaranteed to answer it. Like I said, I had to wait a little bit. I didn't forget, though. Anthony Johnson, this is a good segue into our next topic, and that is week 2 going against the Kansas City Chiefs. This is, what do you guys think of Mason Rudolph starting over Big Ben? That's a joke from the live chat in case anyone didn't get it. He's obviously joking. He loves the show. We appreciate the $5, Anthony, but he's referring to the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is not going to play on Saturday night, and Mason Rudolph is going to get the start. Guys, real quick, first question is, what are your thoughts on Ben not playing? My dad's in town. We had this conversation earlier. He said, don't you think he should play a little bit? I said, I probably would have played him for a series, but that's just me. Bryan, what are your thoughts on Roethlisberger sitting in week 2?
I don't love it, but this could come back and haunt the Steelers. because of rust in the first couple of games of the season. We've seen it. We've seen them not really get started until week 3 or 4 in the past, and I think they need to bust off any rust, get him in game shape, because what happens, that means he only plays in week 3 because he's not going to play in week 4. I know there's a threat for him to get hurt. We see Brady do it maybe for a series or two, but it's really a benefit to get out there and be in game shape.
Okay, Dave, what do you think?
Boy, that would have been a great stat geek for me to look up for you guys. But the problem is, it is so hard to get stats from past years for preseason games. It's really hard to pull out those stats. But I'll ask you guys if you can remember, when's the last time Ben played in week 2? He didn't play last year, didn't play the year before. I'm fairly certain he did not the year before, when it was 17-0 at home against the Eagles. It's been at least 4 or 5 seasons since Ben has played the second week. He only plays in week 3, and it's been a long time. So I expected it. And just for a technicality, Coach Tomlin did not announce that Ben was not playing. He just announced the quarterback progression and that it would be for the game, and it didn't include Ben. So he didn't come out and say the only person that's out this week is Ben Roethlisberger like he did last week. He just said, well, Mason's going to start, Dobbs is going to be next, and we're hoping to get Hodges some time after that. Obviously, that means Ben's not playing.
Right. Go ahead, Ryan.
Dave, to make my point real quick, could you go back and check week 1 and Ben's performances in week 1 the last 5 years? Because I don't think they have been overly stellar. I know last year was not.
I have them right here. Let me, why don't you let Jeff answer something he wants to say while I look it up.
This is a really good point, because for me, him playing more in the preseason now has more weight to it because of who they play in week 1. How many years in a row have we seen them open up against Cleveland? And I know Cleveland is more legitimate this year than in the past, but for crying out loud, they're going to New England in week 1. You can't have a rusty game against the Patriots in Foxborough on Sunday Night Football when they're coming off a Super Bowl championship and expect to win the game. And so for me, if I'm Tomlin, I'm saying, okay, here's how this is going to go. We're going to play Ben for just a series or 2. That's all. He's going to hand the ball off a lot. We just want to get the rust off, get him comfortable, get him acclimated. And then week 3, we're going to have like the dress rehearsal. And week 4, maybe we'll put him out there for a series, or maybe we'll just sit him the whole game. I don't know. But there's a big difference, Brian. I know you agree with me, right? About Cleveland and New England. That's a huge difference.
The last time that I would say that Ben Roethlisberger started a game with any kind of efficiency in week 1, I would have to go back to 2016 when they opened up on the road on Monday Night Football at the Washington Redskins. Other than that, it had always been the Browns. So it had been the Browns the last couple of years. So that one wasn't so bad. They had 6 turnovers in the game last year. How many of those were interceptions? I just wrote down the turnovers. I mean, and lots of, and the week or the year before against the Browns, definitely not covering the spreads, coming out kind of slow. Like I said, the only game that really stands out then was that Redskins game, because the year before they were at the Patriots on a Thursday night, and that was one that they ended up losing by a touchdown, but they also scored a touchdown with less than 10 seconds left of the game.
Right. So
they weren't really in that game. So, and then the year before that one in 2014 was when they came out really strong against the Browns and were up 27-0 or 27-3 at halftime, and had to kick a field goal as time expired in order to win 30-27. So week 1, I'll be honest with you, from what I've seen and what I looked at before, they play better if the competition is stiffer. So that's one hope that I have.
That's another point too. That's a good point. Point well taken. So, okay. We have a question, $5 from Anthony again. We appreciate it. He says, from what you guys have seen, do you think Devlin Hodges could be a sleeper / incredible player? This has been talked a lot about. I think that, in my opinion, the Isaac Redman Award winner for the Behind the Steel Curtain Award we give out every year for training camp, which we have to do that soon since training camp is wrapped up. If it's not Hodges, I don't know who it would be. And that's the player that everyone talks about, everyone loves, everyone thinks is the next great thing. You guys think this is all just the cool duck call thing, and he had all those records in college? I don't know if I see it when I watch him play, but do you guys think this guy could be a sleeper and make the team? Bryan, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. We were high on this guy before we heard anything about duck calls, because this duck call thing has been. We just found out about this about a week and a half ago. Really, as far as I'm concerned, his line of 8 of 14 really should have been 11 or 12 of 14. The guy really was throwing good balls, and I understand he's up against fourth quarter talent in the first preseason game. But when and this goes for Ulysses Gilbert also, but when you're shining and you're playing head and shoulders over that competition, you could go ahead and jump up and play better against second stringers. And he's the kind of guy with his college pedigree, with what he did with breaking records in college, breaking a record of Steve McNair. The guy could really throw a good football. I was really excited about him, and my opinion, I thought he was just as good, if not better, than Joshua Dobbs. And Joshua Dobbs, if you can get a 6th or a 7th and keep this guy at number 3, you really have the same thing, because you're not expecting much out of your number 3. Develop this guy. Don't let him get away to a team like New England, and next thing you know, he's winning games or starting or doing something. You're like, wow, we let this guy go.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, first of all, to reiterate an article I had on the website, I think yesterday, they're not keeping 4, not even with the practice squad. It's a waste. I outlined why it's a waste. They can't do it. People think the practice squad is this magic place where they stash all this hidden talent, where they're just sitting there and standing around twiddling their thumbs, waiting for a chance for someone to get hurt. Those guys participate in the game plan. They need players at certain positions. So don't even talk about putting him on the practice squad. He's either going to make the top 3 or he's not. Now, to say what Coach Tomlin has said in the past when they talked about the level of competition, all you can do is play against the guy that's lined up across from you. It's not your fault if he's all world. It's not your fault if he's a guy that's going to be selling cars next week. You just got to do what you can do. And he did what he could do. So now the Steelers' job is, if they're going to legitimately give him a shot to knock off one of the other quarterbacks, is put him in a higher pressure situation. We could maybe see that in week 4. Who knows? Maybe, depending on stuff, they'll throw him out after Ben Roethlisberger in week 3. That would be kind of insane, but they're going to do it. If they can't not give him a shot before the end of the third quarter, if they're really thinking about keeping him. They have to see what he can do. But all he can do now is show what he can do with who's lined up across from him. I still think it's a long shot. I don't think they can trade any of their quarterbacks for anything. I don't think anyone would even throw a 7th for Josh Dobbs. Just because we have value with them does not mean another team does. They have their own people that they like, that they are trying to figure out who they're going to hold on to. So we'll just have to see what the Steelers do. It's a lot like last year. We might be surprised with who the 3 are.
Exactly. And I think that it's absolutely one of those situations where the Steelers' usage of the quarterbacks, like Dave mentioned, is going to dictate what they really feel about him. If they keep him as nothing but a fourth quarter or a second half guy in the 4th preseason game, you know what you need to know. And that's that he's just basically another camp arm for them. And unless there's an injury, he'll be a free agent once they make the cuts to the 53-man roster. But let's talk a little bit about the coming game. Let's preview this game. The Chiefs are coming to town, and a lot of people wondering, is Patrick Mahomes going to play? Yeah, he's going to play. He played in week 1 against Cincinnati. Why would he not play in week 2? They're going to play him, at least for a little bit. Patrick Mahomes and that prolific offense will be on the field at Heinz Field. And personally, I'm glad, because I want to see the Steelers go up against a legitimate powerhouse offense. Not to take anything away from Tampa Bay, but they had a lot of starters out. And so I think the Steelers defense, now Mike Tomlin, like Dave said, he did not state today in his press conference who will and won't play. But I fully expect to see Stephon Tuitt, Javon Hargrave again, obviously. I wouldn't be shocked to see Cameron Hayward out there for a few series. Joe Hayden's probably not going to play with a contusion to his ankle. But Devin Bush was back at practice today after getting Wednesday off. I think he'll play. Barron will play. I'm not sure about Vince Williams. Essentially, to sum this up, you're going to see more closer to a starting defense than you will what we saw last week, which was Terrell Edmonds was the only starter from 2018 that actually saw a lot of reps. Javon Hargrave's technically not a starter, but he did play. So, guys, your thoughts quickly on the Chiefs offense versus what could be something closer to the Steelers defense in 2019. Dave, we'll go with you first.
I'm sorry, I got distracted by Terry Bradshaw was out. He's not going to play.
Night Wolf, awesome.
Yes. It's not week 3. Week 3 is always when you're going to get who they really want to start their regular week 1 starter people in week 3. But you're going to see so much more of these players, at least to start and in the mix. I don't see them ruling out anybody other than Roethlisberger that's just flat up not going to play, that's not dealing with any kind of injury. Like you said, I wouldn't be shocked to see the Tuitts and the Hart and the Haywards and guys like that get a series. But this is a good test. This is a good Kansas City team. They were the team that scored the most points last weekend in week 1 when they put up 38. So this is a good test for them. The line was a pick 'em when it first started. I didn't know if you knew that, but it has now shifted to 2.5 points in Kansas City's favor, meaning that they're favored by 2.5 points. And if you want a nice safe bet for this game, in my opinion, I would definitely take the over. That's now 46.5. I mean, come on. Do you think 24-23 could be a final score or more than that?
Yeah.
Then take the over.
What about you, Brian? What are your thoughts on the upcoming game with the Chiefs offense coming to town?
I love it. Preseason is for testing. You gotta throw these guys out there and fix the problems. Find out what you got. I want to go up against the best, and this is I hope they play Pat Mahomes the whole game. They're not going to, but I want to see all these guys go up against this guy, and it's going to be a true test of what you've got. And it's going to be a great test for a guy like Justin Lane, who we talked about earlier. And my thing that I didn't get a chance to say earlier is this is a press corner that was playing off man and off the ball, and I'd like to see whether they adjust to that, let him play more of his game, or whether the scheme isn't going to allow it. But I'd like to see what these defensive backs do against Pat Mahomes. And that's the big question going into the season. Is this an upgraded defense? We'll find out.
It's going to be interesting to see because I just have nightmares of week 2 from last year where Mahomes just shredded that defense. But I have to constantly remind myself that if there's been an upgrade, it's been on defense. For instance, John Bostic won't be just running around like a chicken with his head cut off in chase mode all the time. And Travis Kelce will actually have some speedy linebackers to keep up with him. I don't think Sean Davis is going to play this week, although he might. This will be a good test. And that's exactly what you said, Brian, is that that's what the preseason is for. So if they can, Dave, what was the number? 31 in terms of first downs surrendered in week 1 against Tampa
31 first downs surrendered by Tampa Bay.
That's awful.
Yes.
I want to see them get off the field a little bit more.
Which means they had long drives, like that first drive of the game. That's the one thing that I don't want to see. I want to see a splash play given up in the first quarter either, just because that's the guys that shouldn't be giving up splash plays. If they give up splash plays in the second half, probably because, like I said, some guy that's going to be trying to make a practice squad blew a coverage. So, but don't give up those long methodical drives. Let's get a stop in there.
Yeah. So, okay. It's the Chiefs. It's the offense. They don't have much defense. I think the Steelers offense, especially, we're going to ask the question here, and I'll pop some of these from the live chat onto the screen in case you're not following in the live chat. And that is, who are you looking forward to seeing this week? And this is a question I asked last night after Chris Carter had left and done his segment. I asked the people in the live chat, like, who are some players that you're really looking forward to seeing? I said mine last night, but I want to get your guys' take. Brian, what are some players that you're looking forward to seeing in week 2? Because we should see a different set of personnel this week than we did last week.
Well, I'm going to reiterate what everybody is probably saying on the live chat. I got to see some Deontay Johnson. Want to see what this guy could do. I also want to see, you know what? I'll save the next guy, same position. If Dave wants him, he could have him. If not, you could bring him up as a second guy, Dave. But we need to see. We saw some great stuff out of receivers, but there's two we haven't seen. So I want to see if we saw a touchdown from one half of Mr. Third and Fifth. We saw the fifth get a touchdown. Could we see Mr. Third get the touchdown?
That's a good point. Dave,
Yes,
what
it
about you?
is. Someone that I haven't really heard much about this week with everything going on. I'm just curious to see if he'll play at all. I want to see if TJ Watt's back into the mix with everything. Is he going to be back where they're going to play him for a series? Because if he gets any time on the
Yeah.
field, that tells you that he must be fine. And that's kind of been a forgotten story since he's come back and been working his way back. That hasn't been the big news because of all the other people that haven't been playing. So that's one. And I don't know if this is who Bryan's saying or not, but I want to continue to see certain people, and I'll list several of them, that I want to see them playing on special teams. Their actual special teams play. I love seeing Benny Snell getting the first tackle on the opening kickoff. Guys that are reserves got to play snaps on special teams. That's a great plus if Benny Snell can cover on a kickoff. I want to see Ola getting at it again like he did last week on special teams, especially on the kickoff. I want to see Johnny Holton getting those special team snaps in there because, as you guys know, I've talked about him for weeks. My big thing is I couldn't believe they kept Darius Hayward-Bay the last couple of seasons because I'm like, he's not. They have better receivers, but they value that position. When guys aren't your starters, they've got to get snaps in the game at other places. They've got to get those special team snaps. You can't have a guy that's going to be your fifth wide receiver in a game and only play 5 or 6 snaps at that position and not play anywhere else. He's going to have to play special teams. So I want to see a Johnny Holton play special teams and just show that he's a capable wide receiver in case he's active on game day, and that would be the fifth guy.
Yeah, I said this last night, but Dave touched on someone that I spoke about last night. It's the only one I'll say. If you want to hear my full thoughts, go and watch the show from last night. But it's Xavier Grimble. I mean, if there's you look at the positions that are really thin, everyone talks about 2, safety, tight end. Those are the 2. And here you have Xavier Grimble, and he's like, everyone's like, where was he? We know Vance McDonald didn't play, but where was he? And so it'll be interesting to see if he gets on the field and if he does anything good or noteworthy. So we'll see. Now, I do want to mention that Snowman put $5 into the tip jar. We appreciate that, and said, who do you guys think is going to win the punting job? Which is funny. I mentioned that my dad's in town, and he was asking me about the kicking situation. And I said, I think unless Chris Boswell just starts to completely implode, which is possible, that I think it's his job. They have too much money invested. As long as he's making his kicks in the preseason, he'll make the team. But I said, punter is a different story. Ian Berryman showed a really strong leg in week 1 on the few chances that he got. Guys, who's your take here, Bryan? You going to take Berryman to upset Barry, or is it going to be the same old song and dance in 2019?
Well, somebody is going to have a Barry in their name. Look, you've got to remember. You talked about the exercising the demons from week 2 of last season. I was at that game, and the very second that that Barry shanked a punt, and they had great field position, almost returned it. The Boo Birds were out, and this is week 2, and they're just booing a punter like crazy. You've got to remember that. He's got to remember that. The coaching staff has to remember that. I saw a 66-yard punt from Ian Berryman. I want to see more. I want to see. I like that Barry dropped one inside the 20, but I've got to see. I've got to see if there's an alternative because we've been let down a couple times.
All right, Dave, what about you?
Unless Jordan Berry shows that he's going to be more than he was last year, which was slightly below average, then you almost want to take a chance on someone that could maybe get it out there. And if Berryman doesn't step up and grab it, and Barry seems to be more of the same, then you've just got to be looking for for the good competitions on other teams and who doesn't win those jobs and get ready to snag somebody, because it's got to improve. There's no what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. You know what you're getting from Jordan Berry. When he has a short field to punt, he can pin you. But if you need him to flip the field, he's not going to come through. So you need someone that can do both things. Got to take a chance on it somewhere.
Something to keep an eye on, and Dave, this is right up your alley as a special teams guy. Watch to see who is holding, because rumors were last year the only reason Jordan Berry was kept around was because he was the holder for Boswell, and they had a really good rapport together in that area.
That's what I said all the time.
Yeah,
I'm like,
so,
if Boswell would not have been struggling, Barry probably would have been out of a job. But they couldn't afford to change the holder for Boswell, and mess that up as well for him when he was already having problems.
So watch to see who's holding for kickers tomorrow. Is Berryman only holding for right? Or sorry, for Saturday. I'm sorry. Is Berryman only holding for right, or is Berryman holding for Boswell as well? That'll be a telling sign. So there you go. Okay, quick predictions for the game Saturday night. Bryan, who you got? What's the score?
I'm going with the Chiefs, and I'm going with a let's go 31-27.
All right, Dave, what do you got?
Oh, I'm going to go with the Steelers because I'm a homer and I just like to do that. And I like our bottom end guys. I want to see them succeed. So I want to see those guys come out there. I want to see the Steelers maybe be trailing and see Mr. Devlin Hodges having to fling the rock around in order to come back and win. So let's say he really impresses and he's going to come back and get a win for the Steelers at the end and really stir the pot with this quarterback backup controversy stuff. So I'm going to go way over. Although I said on the Stat Geek I wanted the Steelers to hold them to 24 points or less. I really don't think they can. I'm going to go 35-33 Steelers.
I'm going to take the Steelers. It's going to be Rudolph versus Mahomes to start the game, and I think those two quarterbacks are going to be doing some damage. I think Rudolph is poised to throw 2 more touchdowns and to have 4 touchdowns so far in the preseason. I think he and James Washington hook up more than once against that defense. I think that the Steelers defense shows out and plays better. I think that the Steelers win this game. Will go the final score 31-28. So it'll be interesting. It might come down to Devlin Hodges, but we'll see. So there's our predictions. Now, go ahead, Dave. You have something to say?
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question. And between you guys and even the live chat, you guys got to help me so I don't mess this up for an article I have coming out tomorrow. This Mason Rudolph did not start any of the games last preseason, did he?
Yes, he did against Green Bay. He threw a pick six his first pass.
Are you sure he was the first one?
Yes.
They did.
Okay,
they did the
that
same
was the
thing.
question. I know they both had a pick six. I couldn't remember if he actually got that. I know he did not start in week 4.
No, it was the same rotation. It was Dobbs started week 1, Rudolph started week 2, Ben started week 3, and then I can't remember who started week 4. Bryan,
Dobbs started week 4.
Okay, there you go.
Because I was at that one.
They went Dobbs, Rudolph, and
they both played well.
I can't remember the guy that played the fourth quarter, the second half. I'm sorry, he played the whole third and fourth. So
yeah, because I thought in week 4, I thought they would have Dobbs come out, play the whole first half, but they actually put Rudolph in for the 2-minute drill at the end of the first half, and then Rudolph played the whole second half. So, okay, I was just curious. I was not sure if this was his first ever start. I actually like it that it's not. So
this is his first home start because he was in Green Bay when he started.
There we go. We go.
The funny thing is that to me,
got to add that word in that article for tomorrow.
To me, I tell you what, this is do or die mode for him. I think that if he can show, and Tomlin said it today, in stadium play is more important than practice. And so they asked him about, Rudolph makes some mistakes. He throws some picks in practice. He said it's how he plays in a stadium compared to how he plays in practice. So keep that in the back of your mind. The Mason Rudolph fan club, and that's this guy and this guy there are very much excited. All right, so let's go with some questions. I asked the live chat for some Q&A. We have some questions. We're going to go rapid fire. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, do you think that Zach Gentry passes up Xavier Grimble in the depth chart by week 1? Dave.
If he can block.
Bryan Anthony Davis.
Yes, I think it's possible.
Okay, I'm going to say no. I don't think he does. I think he's going to make the team, but I don't think he does. Nightwolf asks, who is the dark horse in the linebacker room to make the team? I think we all are going to have maybe the same guess here, but we'll go with Dave first. Go ahead.
Okay, he said in which
linebacker room.
Linebacker. So it's not either whether inside or outside.
Just the linebacker room.
Okay. Because I think when it comes to linebackers, they will keep 9. The question is, will they go, which one will have 5 and which one will have 4? I'm saying I think Gilbert's going to make the 53. That's probably the lowest guy down. I don't think Sutton Smith will, because he's actually better off now not playing in the preseason, so no one would want him, and they could put him on the practice squad to see what he could do next year.
What about you, Bryan?
First of all, Nightwolf, I think he is secretly related to me because I see his sarcasm on the live chat. So he might be my long-lost son. I don't know. But I'm going to go with my guy all along, Tuzar Skipper. Right now, he looks like he's 5th as an outside linebacker, but he looks like he's the real deal.
Okay, I can't disagree. Next question. Should the Steelers move some backup offensive line pieces to other teams for potential draft picks? Teams can never have enough good offensive linemen, and the Steelers tend to have a pretty good stable of linemen with them. Bryan, we'll go with you first. Is this a position that you'd be willing to part ways with some of these guys to get more draft picks?
It's tough because you don't want to give up depth when you think you have it and then something happens to your starters. But hey, if you can get something out of, one of these guys like a Zach Banner, or maybe even, dare I say, Chooks Okorafor, maybe look at it. At least entertain it.
I don't think they take anybody who they realistically want to have on their 53, and therefore they're going to try to disguise who they have on their 53. So I would say if they moved anyone, I think it would be Gerald Hawkins.
Who would want him? Okay, next question. If James Washington balls out against Kansas City, does he solidify the number 2 wide receiver role? And that would obviously be above a guy like Dante Moncrief. But let's go with Bryan first.
It would be hard to say that he doesn't. If he balls out again, he's got to be a front runner, and Dante Moncrief would have to be absolutely exceptional to do so.
Dave?
I don't know that there's that big a difference between number 2 and number 3. I know that they'll get a few more snaps, but I think it's something that could just even be flux all the time. But I think that to go along with the equation, that if he balls out, he might have to earn the nickname Mr. Kaopectate, because he would then now be the solid number 2.
That was a Bryan Davis joke.
I knew that was a Bryan Anthony Davis joke. I thought he'd beat me to it.
I just got moved down the depth chart with that joke. Great.
All right, let's keep moving. We have some good questions here. Over under on Artie Burns penalties this week, 3, because he's supposed to play. What do you guys think? I don't know. Let's go, Dave.
Okay, I'll go under. I think it'll be 2, and I don't know if he'll play enough to get a third one.
All right, Bryan?
I'm going under. Just think it's not happening.
I'm going to take a push that he'll have 3. And that third one will be a challenged play where they challenge it and he gets called.
Does your push go along with the chiropector? Sorry.
No, it doesn't. All right, so from Kathy, she said gives $5 in the live chat, super chat feature, saying good discussion. We appreciate the $5. Absolutely appreciate that, as always. Thank you very much. A lot of predictions here, just to throw some out there. Someone said this. Jamie said Steelers 30-28. Kevin, Chiefs 38-28. Snowman, $2 in the tip jar, says you guys rock, go Steelers. Thank you, Snowman. We appreciate it. Andy, 51-13 Steelers. Holy cow. That would be great for website traffic. I'll put it that way. Nightwolf with the Bryan Anthony Davis pick, 112-98 Steelers. Snowman says Steelers win in a rather low-scoring affair in this one, 25-21. Let's see here. Let's see if we have any other questions before we go to our either or. Oh, Anthony gave us $10. Here we go. What do you guys think of a potential Hard Knock season in the near future? From a fan's perspective, it would be great, but I think it would be a distraction. Well, first and foremost, you have to understand how the NFL selects these teams. There are certain criteria. So, for instance, a team cannot have made the playoffs the year before. They cannot have been on the show before, and I think there's a third one that I'm forgetting. But
2 years in a row, they have to miss the playoffs.
Okay. So so the Steelers hopefully are never eligible, because if they make the postseason this year, they're not eligible for Hard Knocks, and they've never been on it. And I often wonder, because the Steelers have some clout when it comes to the NFL. The Rooney name has some clout when it comes to the NFL. I'd be interesting to see if the NFL ever went to them, if they would say, we're not doing that. But guys, would you be interested in that? Because a part of me would. I'd love to see inside. There's such a tight knit organization. It'd be really cool to kind of get a glimpse. But otherwise, I'm not sure. You guys, yay or nay? Dave, what do you think?
I don't get HBO. I don't watch Hard Knocks. I don't want the distraction. I don't want to have to go out and buy HBO, because if the Steelers are on, I would watch. So, or else I'd have to be at Bryan's house all the time to watch. So I'm going to say let's. I don't want the 2 times not in the playoffs. So once I heard about that, no, never.
Okay, Bryan.
Oh, I would love it. I love Hard Knocks. It's a great show. And I was thinking when I was watching it this week that, boy, this year, just this preseason they would be awesome this year, just because of what they went through in the offseason. A guy like Duck Dynasty would be definitely highlighted. You would see the inside, like Jeff said, with everything going on. They would probably get some of the best ratings ever. I don't want it to happen, just for the fact that, like 2 losses in a row, 2 losing seasons in a row. But here's the thing. John Gruden has a lot of veto power, and the Steelers would have a lot of veto power of what goes on, so they can control a lot of that narrative as well. You know what? It's only a distraction if you make it a distraction. So I'm not worried about the distraction part of it. And you have the 2 guys that would get distracted the most are not on the team.
Which, by the way, Dave, if you are interested in watching Hard Knocks, you can actually watch them live on YouTube, or not live on YouTube, but on YouTube, but maybe 2 or 3 days later. So, like, I watched the first episode of the Raiders on my TV with my smart TV, just logged into YouTube. If I was an HBO subscriber just for Hard Knocks, I'd be pissed. But you can do that. You can watch it. So, here we go. We have a couple other over under from Nico. Mason Rudolph touchdowns 3. What are you guys taking, the over or the under, Bryan?
I got to go the under, just because probably not enough time to get it.
Dave?
You can't take an over on that. So I'm going to have to say under, but I'd really like to push.
I'd take the under because I said 2. All right, Cree says, how many total sacks? Over under 4. Bryan?
Let's go over.
Okay, Dave?
I'm going to go over as well. Let's go 5 this week.
Okay. Sorry, I'm laughing at Night Wolf. Some of this. Let's see.
I finally got a fan. I've never had one.
Okay. Here's a good question. Who will
wait? What's your over under, Jeff?
For with the sacks?
Yeah.
We'll say under. I'll say 3. Who will be the backup offensive lineman this year?
Oh, me.
Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so Filer's going to get to be the right tackle. So your backup offensive linemen are going to be B.J. Finney, Fred Johnson, Zach Banner, and Chuksa Okorafor.
All right. Dave or Brian Davis?
I can't argue with that, but as long as it's not J.C. Hassenauer.
All right, last question here. Total yards defense allows 375, over under.
Bryan?
Yeah, I hope it's under.
Under.
I'm afraid it's going to be over.
Okay, I said I hope it's under. Real quick. All right, real quick. Does Marcus Allen make the 53? Yes or no, Bryan?
Yeah, I actually think he does.
Okay, what about Dave?
In our latest prediction, that's just in mine, but he's been kind of yielding and letting me kind of take that for a little bit. I had him off this time, but I still think that he's a guy that all he has to do is show out a little bit in the next couple of weeks, and he's right back on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. Great questions. Great interaction with the live chat. I love this new feature where we can get those comments on the screen. Hopefully that helps people. I don't purposefully cover up Dave's face. It just happens to be that he's on the bottom portion of the screen.
You need to put something up there to block my face the whole time, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, so let's get to our either or segment. We have decided that we're going to do nothing but Steelers either wars during the season. And so, Brian, you said you have one, right? Do you want to go last? I can say mine if you want.
I'll go last. You have to choose. Do you want fun Steelers or do you want Steelers stats?
You choose.
Steelers like
choose.
personnel.
All right.
Or do you want
I'm
both?
just glad the option wasn't dirty Steelers, because usually coming from Bryan, it's something dirty. So I'm glad that wasn't the option. So, but I do have one.
Okay, you do have one. All right, I'm going to go first, though. I'm going to go first. So my either or, I was cutting grass today thinking about some of the bad quarterbacks the Steelers have had in my lifetime. And although Ben Roethlisberger has encompassed the majority of those and would not fall into that category, I kept on thinking that, there's been some other bad quarterbacks. So here's your question. There's a big game coming up. Ben Roethlisberger's hurt. There's no Josh Jobs. There's no Mason Rudolph. And you're the coach, and you have to choose between Cordell Stewart or Neil O'Donnell to quarterback your team to win the game. Now, you only have a week to prepare. So you got to think about all these different factors, but you have to choose one of these guys. Who are you picking? Brian, I want your take first.
I'm going Neil O'Donnell because as much as everybody wants to say, this is the third best quarterback in Pittsburgh Steeler history statistically, and probably the third best quarterback in Steeler history. He's not as bad as you remember. You remember Larry Brown. You forget the fact that Ernie Mills got injured. You forget the fact that Corey Holiday ran the wrong route. All you want to say is that he got paid off by the mafia to lose that game. And I know this is going to start off a firestorm, but yeah, I'm taking Neil O'Donnell. He was the better quarterback.
Ugh, Dave, go ahead.
I'm going to go from a coaching standpoint and say, let's disagree with Bryan, and I'll go with Cordell Stewart just to have that thing where maybe you can throw in something that the other team's not prepared for. He might be harder for the other team to prepare for you for one game with that. I'm really scraping to come up with a good reason, because I think I like Lance's answer better, but that's at least a little bit of an explanation.
Well, here's the thing, is that Cordell Stewart was a dual threat player. Mm-hmm. So give me the Cordell Stewart that's that's going to run as much as he has throw. And for one game, if I only need one win, I'm going to take his skill set to win. Neil O'Donnell, see ya. And Brian, all these people in the live chat are right. They want you off the show.
They're killing me. But where were you when I was in section 225 watching Cordell
in 2001?
And I was in the upper level in 1998 watching Cordell throw interception after interception.
Well, do you want to know why? Do you want to know why? Because for some reason they didn't want him to run. They wanted him to stop running. If they would have let him run, let him be who he is, it would have been a different story. But it's a discussion for another time. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And you can't rewrite history. Yeah, you also can't write those.
O'Donnell's stats. Everyone is tied to one game. One game.
That was the Super Bowl, Brian. It was the freaking Super Bowl.
Forgive him.
One game was
that is the last. Yeah, and that was the last game he ever played as a Steeler, right?
All right. He won the game to get him there.
Yeah, but you're like, it's tied to one game. It was the Super Bowl. That's like your Senquez Golson theory. Well, he did practice that one time. I mean, that doesn't make it a bad pick. Yes, it does, because he didn't play.
Look, I think Cordell would have been one of the greatest Steeler receivers of all time. I just don't think I haven't seen him win a game that they had to win.
Okay, well, how about 1994 when he short hopped the throw to Barry Foster in the rain against the Chargers to go to the Super Bowl? What about that? That's a horrible throw.
That was good coverage by Dennis Gibson.
Oh, my gosh. You got to give your guy a chance to make a play. He didn't even give him a chance. He skipped it to him. That's horrible. Don't get me started on Neil O'Donnell. I shouldn't have asked the
Hey,
question.
guys,
Dave,
like.
go ahead. Dave, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, like Andy just said in the live chat, you can even bring it up there, Jeff, if you want to.
I'll bring it
That
up.
out of all those, they'd still take Charlie Batch over Neil O'Donnell.
Well, I didn't bring up Charlie Batch because
I know,
everyone
because he wasn't a
Charlie
starter.
Batch.
But
Everyone,
that just goes to show you Neil O'Donnell where he goes down amongst Steeler fans in Steeler history. That agrees with you, Jeff. That agrees with what you're saying.
Okay, go ahead, Dave. Let's move on before Bryan and I get into more verbal sparring.
That was a great question. That really was. Because
I'm about to
it
get
wasn't like,
lynched on the live chat.
no, because it's one of those questions of, I mean, it's easy to answer. Would you rather eat ice cream or pizza? It's a lot harder to answer if you'd rather eat, you know, dirt or sand. I mean, come on.
Sure.
So
Finally,
this
somebody,
was,
Jerry Cherry Band. Bring up Jerry Cherry Band. Bring him up.
There's something
Finally-
wrong. There's something wrong with that. I can't.
Finally,
do it. I'm just
someone. Thank you, Jerry.
Again,
yeah.
when those few bad throws are in a Super Bowl, it matters. That's like when Rashard Mendenhall, he didn't really have a fumble problem. It was just that one fumble in that one game. It was the Super Bowl.
You
That
tell me.
matters.
Okay.
Yep.
Jerome Bettis didn't have a fumbling problem until he fumbled in the divisional game and almost lost the game.
If he'd have lost the game and that had been his last game, that's how he would have been remembered.
And so we would hate Jerome Bettis.
No, that's why I'm
Forever.
like, they have to win this for Jerome. They have to win this for Jerome. You can't go out like that. So,
So we would have turned our back on Jerome Bettis if that game would have ended the other way.
I'll say right now, if Ben doesn't make that tackle, Jerome Bettis isn't in the Hall of Fame.
You've said that before, and I kind of agree with you on that. But we would have turned our back on him. So I just
give you a
don't get
timeout, Bryan.
Okay.
I just give you a timeout. All right.
Hey,
okay,
Dave,
either
either or. This is pizza or ice cream. This isn't sand or dirt. Okay. So here we go. For the game Saturday night, would you rather come out of that game with a quarterback who threw 3 touchdowns or a running back who rushed for 3 touchdowns? What would get you more excited about the coming season?
Can you tell me the quarterback and the running back?
I didn't even want to pigeonhole you into that. You can pick which one you want.
If it's Mason Rudolph, I'm going to be more excited about the quarterback. But that's just because I really want him to win the backup job. I really want him to kind of be what I mentally have him in my mind as a really good future quarterback. So I'll say quarterback. What about you, Bryan?
Running back, because they will have more of an impact on the season. If you see, especially if you see something out of Benny Snell Jr. or if you see something out of Jalen Samuels, a lot of people are excited about Jalen Samuels after just a couple carries. If you see that, that they could contribute every single game of this season. You're hoping not to see any of these quarterbacks on the field in 2019.
Dave, what about you?
I'm also going to go with running back with an asterisk that it wouldn't matter to me which quarterback it would be. Of course, I'd want it to be Mason Rudolph, but any of them would be great. If it's a running back that's buried down the depth chart, like if it would have been Bryan's Frank Webb, I'm sorry, he's not on the team anymore. I know it's Ralph Webb, Bryan, before you start shouting. But that would then be like, oh man, now we've got to worry about this other, we have more of a controversy. If you're talking Jalen Samuels or Benny Snell getting into the touchdown zone 3 times in the game, I'm all over that.
I'm coming out with those t-shirts and I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to throw a party and it's going to be Jerry Cherry Band at my house partying with me. And maybe if Night Wolf, if he comes back around, you guys aren't invited to that party when I have my touchdown zone t-shirts. I'm just telling you that right now.
We need a t-shirt that says, if only Neil O'Donnell would have got in the touchdown zone.
He wasn't that bad, guys. He wasn't that bad. Okay, Bryan, go ahead. You're either or.
Okay. I guess I'm going to go fun. I could go standard, but you guys went standard. Let's go to the fun zone, which equals touchdown zone here. So you had to take one Steeler out to dinner, and this guy, you're worried about your wallet here. You only have a certain amount of money. Are you going to go ahead and take Daniel McCullers, Or are you going to go ahead and take, let's go with Alejandro Villanueva?
Well, that's easy because you probably don't know this if you didn't read the article, but Alejandro Villanueva is very self-conscious about his body. In the offseason, he loses a bunch of weight. Now he's trying to gain like 20 pounds back on before week 1. I think he's going to be very sensible. He's going to fit in my budget requirements. Big Dan McCullers, that guy will eat me out of house and home. I'll take Big Al. What about you, Dave?
For those options, I really wanted Big Snack to be the other option. I really did. But I will take Daniel McCullers. Yeah, that's why I was so excited when you went through, who am I going to pick? I'm like, give me a classic. But I'll take Dan McCullers. I'll be honest with you guys. I have never lost any sort of eating competition that I've ever been involved with, whether it be, a dozen donuts hot out of the glaze in 3 minutes and I crushed them in 2, whether it be anything that I've been challenged to eat in a certain amount of time, whether it be how many marshmallows I can get in for Chubby Bunny. I've never lost anything dealing with food. I would love to sit down with somebody like a Big Dan and say, hey, let's crush this. I can take you. Competition time. That's my pick.
So you don't care about your wallet. You're just going for the sport of it.
Oh no, I'm going for the sport. Let's see what we can eat.
You're talking to an almost Big Mac eating competition champion, but the guy had a reversal of fortune next to me in '96, and so I pulled out. But I also won a Mrs. Fields cookie eating contest back in 1995, and I was 170 pounds at the time. So just thought I'd let you know that. I'm going to actually. I'm going to take Big Al, but to actually counterpoint what Jeff said, if he's trying to put on 20 pounds, that might be dangerous too. He might eat you out of the restaurant. But hey, any Steeler that wants to hang out with me at this point, I take Cameron Canaday out to dinner. Just like somebody hang out with me, especially because now I've got the live chat hating on me. So maybe the long snapper will hang out with good old BAD.
I just love Lance's comment here.
Yeah.
Jeff is about to throw up. Okay.
Hey, it's not like
I love
stuff all the
Lance's
time,
picture.
but I do it for competitions.
Lance looks like he's yelling at me in that picture. He's like scolding me. He's like, "Oh, PD, what are you doing?"
There you go. Yep. So okay. All right. So hey, we thank guys. This was a longer show. We appreciate it. I hope that everyone that's listening enjoys this content. And so just to make sure everyone is up to speed, tomorrow, Friday, Lance will be live for his Yeah, I Said It. And he'll talk about whatever he wants and he'll answer your questions. So be ready for that. And I have had a lot of people email me saying, Jeff, do you have a schedule for your YouTube shows? And I said this last night, and I'll say it again tonight. I'd love to have a schedule, but we can't have a schedule because the games change in terms of the day of the week. I have 5 kids. Dave has 3. Bryan has 2. We're all really busy. And sometimes it's just we can't get on the air until 9:30. And so your best bet is to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because when you subscribe to our channel, you will get a notification every single time we go live. We're over 3,200 followers already. I want to see if we can get to 4,000 by the start of the season. So share it. Tell your friends if they're Steeler fans. Check it out. And obviously, audio platform, wherever you get podcasts, just search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain, and you'll get it all there. Again, subscribe so you don't miss anything. We're giving you like 7 shows a week, people. My gosh. So that's that. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Bryan. We appreciate your time. As always, we'll see you next week for a Steelers preview where we preview who do they play in week 3? Is it the Eagles? No.
Tennessee Titans.
Oh, look at you two. You guys said it together. That's cute. All right. So with that said, we'll see you next week. And as Lance always says, tune in, tell a friend, and subscribe. We'll see you for another episode of the Steelers Preview.